Hi, my name is Cody Phillips. Today we're going to be going over the 2011 Fukushima nuclear disaster. We're going to be going over the timeline of events, ethical and psychological influences that happened throughout the disaster, as well as some practical lessons for engineers in the future. A lot of people would like to start the timeline at March 7th, 2011, which is when the Tokyo Electrical Power Company, TEPCO, the company that runs the Fukushima power plant, conducted an internal analysis that stated that their seabed facing wall, which is 5.7 meters high, would not be tall enough to stop a worst case scenario tsunami wave greater than 10 meters. But before that analysis report was done, through 2002 to 2008, multiple analysis reports were done by TEPCO that stated the same thing, that their 5.7 meter wall would not be able to stop a worst case scenario tsunami wave, and all were rejected by TEPCO executives. The executive stated that their reports were done unscientifically or exploratively and were either too expensive or would take too long time to complete. The 2011 report was finally accepted by TEPCO executives, and a plan was put in place to increase the size of the seabed wall. 4 days after the plan was approved, a 9.0 magnitude earthquake hit the east coast of Japan, knocking out all power to the Fukushima plant on March 11, 2011. Luckily, the plant was supplied with 10 backup diesel generators to support power and emergency functions, 9 of which were located in an underground basement below sea level. 40 minutes after the earthquake, a 14-meter tsunami wave struck the side of the power plant, going over the seabed wall and completely flooding the power plant. Because the generators were located in the basement, the generators are then flooded and the power plant lost all power. Once the plant lost emergency power, that meant that the reactor's steam release valves had to be operated manually instead of electronically. Because the plant operators hadn't done this in a really long time, they had to track down some old and outdated technical manuals to be able to do this that were in separate buildings than where they were used to. Because of the time needed to find the manuals and how to figure out how to use the manual release valve properly, this further increased the amount of pressure from steam, which further resulted in the reactors exploding. Without water being pumped into the nuclear reactors via electrical pumps, the fuel rods within the reactor could not be cooled properly, allowing them to heat up wildly and to build up steam pressure. Because of this, 3 of the 4 active reactors went into meltdown, and all of them exploded within 72 hours. The impacts from the disaster is that there is a 20-kilometer radius from the evacuation zone that is still evacuated to this day. There's a short release of radiation which, unlike the Chernobyl disaster, was quickly controlled. There are 51 fatalities due to evacuation efforts of a local hospital, and there were 6 workers that were injured with non-threatening injuries in the explosions of the nuclear power plant. Now we'll go over some of the ethical and psychological shortcomings that plagued the disaster as it was happening. The first major issue is that TEPCO prioritized profits over safety. Each time they were warned about a tsunami possibly breaching the seawall, they responded by saying it was either too expensive or highly unlikely that it would happen. When working with nuclear energy, public safety should always be prioritized over profits, no matter how unlikely the situation. The second major issue during the disaster was that the regulatory agency in charge of nuclear safety for Japan was in a huge conflict of interest with the power plants that it was regulating. During that time, Japan's Nuclear Safety Agency was a part of the Ministry of the Economy, the same entity that is promoting nuclear energy for Japan. This again created an environment where profits were again prioritized over proper regulations and safety. Oversight was weak, and regulation served industry goals. The final ethical dilemma that occurred was obedience to authority and groupthink within TEPCO. Engineers at TEPCO avoided challenging management to further avoid career damage. In Japanese corporate culture, conformity and respect of your superiors are extremely important, making it hard to raise unpopular truths and dissent against superiors within the company. Because of these norms within the work culture, the 2002 to 2008 reports were downplayed internally rather than escalated to force action. Now we'll move on to lessons and possible strategies for engineers in the future who may find themselves in situations like the Fukushima disaster. TEPCO could have created an ethical safety board, independent of management, full of internal, and external experts within their respective fields that could help identify and mitigate risks often overlooked by executives in the company. Second strategy that TEPCO could have added is mandating crisis drills and implementing clear protocols. Mandating periodic power outage drills, as well as making sure their technical manuals are where they're supposed to be and up to date, could have helped the workers at the power plant extend the time till meltdown. Immediately after the disaster, TEPCO wanted the public to think that this was a natural disaster that was completely unavoidable. As multiple investigations have proven, it was built on neglect, bias, conformity, and broken communication. Although many within Japan's nuclear industry thought that a record-breaking earthquake and tsunami were unthinkable, if TEPCO had built independent safety channels, institutionalized dissent, and crippled obedience-driven silence, they would have saved lives after the unthinkable happened.